different. Welcome in my latest video about the psychedelic part of Daoism. Lately my mind has been wandering off a lot actually, and it is considering lately my mind has been wandering off and it is considering the concept of intelligence, and especially in relationship to the meditative model that Daoism actually proposes. About 30 years ago I started thinking and talking about the psychiatrical model of About 30 years ago I started thinking and talking about using Daoism as a psychiatrical model. That means to use Daoism as a clinical setting for treating psychological problems, because of the nature of Daoism being, pretty much psychedelic. I have some experience in that past sense, and I think as a result of that I have maybe a little bit better model on this than some other people. I got to talk about these plans. I got to talk about these plans with several psychiatrists, sometimes indirectly, sometimes directly, and actually they were pretty much interested, as long as they were into informal psychiatry. As you know, psychiatry prefers to put people into institutions and into the regular use of medications to deal with problems. The issue is that people who have psychiatrical problems are in a way out of control of whatever's happening to them because of their belief system. So there we go. This is what it is all about. And for this we have to ask ourselves a few questions. The psychiatrical model that I had in mind was based on several exercise and rituals, which you could say is called psychedelic meditation. Daoist meditations, they start of course in a basis with stilling your mind and becoming quiet and getting rid of your stress and so on, but in reality you are trying to rebuild the structure of your mind through doing service and through doing rituals into something more helpful to the overall scheme of things. That can be society, but it is definitely also the grand scheme of creation as a whole. And I unfortunately didn't get into direct talks with psychiatrists and clinics to actually make things work in a way that we could test my ideas, but people were definitely willing to think about it, and I think in the future, when we are going to set up these things as a program, there will be more experimenting going on. We see this of course with people who do this voluntarily and that it works, and we see that they go through life changes. I myself am an example of that. The thing is, in Daoist training you voluntarily submit yourself to a sort of mental discipline to change your belief system. Once your belief system is changed, you start making other thoughts, and as a result that the chemistry of your brain, the chemistry of your body, the musculature of your body, everything is gradually going to alter itself to fit the bill of your thoughts. What triggered me to make this movie is that I saw some time ago, for the so manyth time, new documentaries about octopus intelligence, where they say, well, okay, the octopus has a very different kind of intelligence because their brain is being distributed through their arms, and as a result of that their thought processes are very different, but they are definitely also very intelligent. Something similar you see with the trees, who have many similar neurons and hormones that human beings have, but they have them in the tips of their roots, so their thoughts actually go in their roots. I very often say to my students, already for as long as I know, that the brain of the tree is in the ground, and that basically the trunk is only waving above, just to catch something in the wind and to have some breath and stuff like this. So the life of the tree is in the earth. So this is where they move, and this is also where they displace themselves from A to B during their lifetime. There is something like evolution. Yeah, that is what people usually talk about. Personally, I wouldn't call it evolution, but I would call it differentiation. But it has shown us that all animated life is basically investigative. That means that all animated life is, having a sort of intelligence. And in my recent Yijing class, I was discussing that every form of communication is a form of questioning. So that means that a tree, a octopus, a mouse, a rat, a lion, a strawberry plant, everything is questioning its surrounding, and as a result of this questioning gradually comes to solutions for the unique issues that the animal or plant is facing. It's a little bit ironic. My children this week decided that they want to become vegetarian, which I'm very happy about, but on the other hand, it is also very reasonable to feel sorry for plants for the same reason why you would become a vegetarian. The thing is, the intelligence from the different creatures is not the same like ours. Now we have an intelligence which we can say like this is like a rational intelligence, and we have an emotional intelligence, and then we have the intelligence of our body. We have a lot of different kind of intelligence being bound up within us, which makes us in a way pretty much unique, and also makes us very dangerous for all the other living things on the planet, as we by now have come to understand. And in fact, even between people, we can see there's different kinds of intelligence. For instance, a student of mine was teaching the Tai Chi Chuan that I teach in Africa, and he noticed that if he looks at European students and non-African students, the people there that he was training were physically much more intelligent in adopting themselves to a particular kind of move, but their understanding of the moves itself was more far away. So when you look at Chinese culture, imitating is seen as a very important component of learning, certainly with things like this, but also with behavioral things. Confucianism basically says if you are practicing something, a particular kind of behavior, like there's this event A happening and you respond in method B or in method C, you get different kinds of outcome. And at the moment when you train yourself to give response B, you get the proper outcome, and when you get to respond in method C, then you get a counterproductive outcome and things escalate. So that means that a lot of behaviors, they can be trained, and as a result of that you create different outcomes, because people are by all means predictable, just like animals are very often predictable.
Hunting is not a matter of adventurous chase, but is basically waiting for the right moment for a lion or a leopard or something like this, so that the prey actually gets into the situation where it can be attacked and eaten.
European intelligence compared to, for instance, Chinese intelligence is very different, because our main focus is on mental questioning, and at the moment when we focus on mental questioning, we do not look at the social consequences so much of our behavior, because we consider that as an act of free will, and we emphasize that, and as a result of that we see in recent times that our Western cultures have become more and more barbaric the more we emphasized our free will in that way, as Europe has been doing in the last 500 years, more and more and more. And of course, I also treasure my free will, so that I can do and think and say whatever I want. But my parents never really taught me how to be responsible for my thoughts and my actions, and our schools didn't do that, and our society as a whole doesn't do that. It blames you for making a mistake, and then it sends you to prison, or maybe in some countries you even get a death penalty for making mistakes, which in itself is of course very unfair, because it's society producing that kind of behavior because of its emphasis on the way how we develop free will without the education to use free will in a proper way. So you see, the thing with psychiatry is that things move between the criminal and the insane, and the criminal and the insane are not just with the person, but they're also in society. That is a very important thing to remember when you talk about people with psychological problems, or for instance drug addiction, which causes also all kind of issues, maybe social issues because of the wars on drugs, certainly also within their biology. There are a few different kind of researchers. For instance, in Tufts University there are Daniel Bennet and Michael Levin. The first one is a philosopher and the second one is a biologist. They suggest that cells in our body, they have a certain kind of intelligence. That is not a very new thought, there's many kind of thoughts like that. But the way how they formulated it is pretty much unique. And what they say is that the accumulation of all these intentions of all the different kind of cells will eventually lead to what we would call the sense of I and the intelligence that we use usually to make our decisions. And they say in their scope the decision-making process of the cells are very similar to the decision-making process that we ourselves also go through. And as a result of that, the cells and the mind, of course, can be trained in a similar way. That is my conclusion, by the way, that's not what they said. Critics of these two people, they usually say, well, it's a little bit like panpsychism, and maybe not so much valid, because panpsychism is the idea that the whole of the universe actually is conscious, and as a result of this consciousness creates things. So you come very quickly to ideas of the clockmaker that actually creates the universe and has a plan for us, as many people in their paranoia think that, you know, they are being tested or something like this, because, you know, something going wrong in the control over their thoughts and feelings, and they feel they're being driven. And that part you also have to pay attention to. Jung, Carl Gustav Jung, you remember him maybe from some influence on our modern society. He had a similar idea of a sort of superego where everything is being collected, and we sometimes draw from this superego so that we can receive wisdom, which is from everybody, from all living creatures. And that idea originates in the idea of the Akashic records, as Mme Blavatsky proposed. She was a theosophist and was trying to create a new sort of Catholic church on a more, you know, less authoritarian. But these Bennet and Levin, they suggest that the mental structure of our mind is similar and more complex than the cells, like I said before. In that case, the cooperation between cells is what eventually generates our minds, and when our minds are being generated, they are no different from the intelligence of our cells. In Daoism, a similar idea is essential for its practice. It is being said that there are like tens of thousands of spirits in our body, and these spirits, they are being organized in, well, broadly speaking, 5 categories, which are hierarchically structured, and they have like a sort of kings on top, and these kings, they work together, they are structured and interwoven, and as a result of that we get well, what we would call the I, or the Wa, or ourselves, the Ji in Chinese. To become aware of these structures, we have all kinds of practices. There's not just the Tai Chi Chuan, and there's not just meditation, it's sitting and getting our mind still, but there's also the integration with the Ling body. There is the development of Jing, of the Jing Qi, of the Shen awareness. There are the trainings to become aware and controlling over the spirits and the gods of our body and the body parts. And there's the of course the hierarchical categories that you have to come to know, so that the self in that sense is very similar as that what is happening inside the body, and that the fragmentedness of our mental structure is a sign of the disorganization of the spirits of our body and the categories of our body. So a large part of the psychiatrical process in Daoism is the organization of the self into a coherent structure, a holist structure even, where the channels and the acupuncture points like we use in acupuncture, massage and so on, but even the working of the muscles and so on are only a part. So when we talk in Daoism about the cultivation process, we actually talk about the reworking of how we experience ourselves towards this wholesome self, which is following a particular kind of plan, and as a result of that you start developing a particular kind of freedom. That is the freedom of suffering, of course, primarily, because that is the main reason why people would like to change. In the Svenwu-pai that I'm a member of course, this is what is putting the Sven into the Svenwu. Sven, of course, meaning both dark, mysterious, occult, esoteric, and so on and so on. So usually we call this esoteric community. Yeah, so esoteric, what do I call it? Usually guilt. The word Sven is very famous. The Daoist Wang Pi talked about that, and in his commentaries on the Tao Te Ching and the Yijing, he extensively discussed the whole concept of Sven De. Sven De is the inherent mysterious qualities of things, and these inherent qualities, they have to be studied. You have to become aware of them, and you have to gradually become able to handle it. It is the way how things in nature actually always give something. They're part of Tao, they're created by Tao, but at the same time they give something back to the creation. They don't give back something to Tao, but they give something back to creation. They are part of the interdependent origination of all things, and as a result of that they give something back. I know that there are modern Taoist sects. They say, like, well, you know, because there is this Tao and De, you have to give something back to your Pai, and as a result of that the Tao will give you. I remember one of my teachers saying, when a student got a girlfriend within the organization of the group, like, oh, see, Tao provides for you, and as a result of that you now find happiness. But within that same group, you know, these people, they cheated on each other and all kind of weird things happen. So Tao gives and Tao takes, so to say. Yes, so it is actually, of course, a fantasy that people have to justify particular kind of things and to clarify why things happen. It also creates authority within a Pai when people say these kind of things. I can give you other examples where people actually say, like, you have to give me money because I teach you, and as a result of that, that is the because if you don't give me money, I might not be sympathetic to you, might not like to teach you, which of course is a very capitalist attitude, which no Taoist should ever, you know, relate to. Technically, all Taoists should aim to teach for free, but unfortunately Taoists also have to live, so they should accept whatever they need to live and to organize their teachings, and that's about it. Well, when we look at this further, then you can say that the formation of our mind and our thoughts, you can say that the formation of our minds and our thoughts is in itself mysterious. So as a result of that, we can talk about Sven De in the sense that we are being created by nature as a whole, our parents, heaven, earth, and so on and so on. And what we give back is in our behaviors. And of course, that what we give back cannot be just what we want to give, but what we have to give. And what we have to give, of course, has to be supportive. So when you talk about people who are confused, or they have mental problems, or maybe even have a life full of hallucinations and so on, they live in a reality, in a sense of reality, which is disturbed, and through which they cannot make the proper choices to live a life of servitude and sobriety maybe, and be a healthy part of the society that they are part of. And they need a formula, they need a working pattern to be able to give back to the society that they are part of, and their family and their friends and so on. The first step to understand and to guide the mind is the meditation process, as you understand, where you try to calm your mind, and as a result of that you basically reset your neural structure. It is basically also what we experience during sleep and what we can experience during particular kind of medications, where the neural structures of our mind are being broken down, and as a result that they can reset themselves and they can develop themselves and hopefully you know, go on in the right direction. It is a daily process, sleeping, meditation. If it is a daily process, it actually gradually replaces sleep, so you don't need to sleep anymore because it's already been done in your meditation. In Buddhism, they want you to still your mind per se, while in Daoism, they want you to still your mind and your body in such a way that gradually you untie also all the tensions of your body, and as a result of that, you are also restructuring the different parts that hold on to memories which are in your body, because for Daoism, your whole body is basically your mind. You are a mind as a living creature, and all the different parts of you are part of this mind, and as a result of that, their interactions have to be reorganized and restructured so that you do not feel, well, damaged. As an observation, we can also see that many people get stuck in their mental processes. When they get stuck in their mental processes, they start to become repetitive in their mind, they start worrying, they start having fixed griefs, they get excitable in their mind, they become sentimental about all kinds of things, and as a result of that, they start programming themselves by repetitive behaviors in a way that is more and more difficult to escape. And so they lock themselves basically into a psychological treadmill, which is difficult to break through. In modern psychiatry, people are experimenting with hallucinogenic drugs like LSD and other stuff to help people to get out of that process. But what the Taoist psychiatry suggests is that through gradually diluting their mind by involving them in particular kind of rituals and practices, they gradually learn to take control themselves, they get out of their system, and as a result of that, actually get to the point where you can say, like, I'm a free person because I am in control of my mind and my feelings, and as a result of that, I actually, yeah, I'm doing pretty good.
Oh, look at him. He's een echte Kung Fu Master.
Me too.
Yes.
Maar dat is...
Oh, you sound also very well. Look at
Wow.
How many minutes?
There's another one. There's another one. You also do another one then. Yeah.